Coming up on 5 Minute News. Kyle Rittenhouse takes the stand to defend himself of murder charges. Gerrymandering surges as Republicans redraw maps for House seats. And Boeing finally compensates victims of Ethiopian 737 MAX fatal crash. It's Thursday, November 11. I'm Anthony Davis. Kyle Rittenhouse claimed on Wednesday he was under attack when he killed 2 men and wounded a third with his rifle during a chaotic night of protests in Kenosha, saying, "I didn't do anything wrong, I defended myself." In a high-stakes gamble, the 18-year-old took to the stand at his murder trial to tell his side of what happened on the streets that day in the summer of 2020, sobbing so hard at one point that the judge called a break. In an account largely corroborated by video and the prosecution's own witnesses, Rittenhouse said that the first man cornered him and put his hand on the barrel of Rittenhouse's A-15 semi-automatic rifle. The second man hit him with a skateboard, and the third man came at him with a gun of his own. His testimony was interrupted by an angry exchange in which his lawyers demanded a mistrial over what they argued were out-of-bounds questions asked of him by the chief prosecutor. The judge, though plainly angry at the prosecutor, did not immediately rule on the request, and later in the day, he instructed the jury to expect closing arguments early next week. 18-year-old Rittenhouse is on trial over the shootings he committed during the unrest that erupted in Kenosha over the wounding of Jacob Blake, a black man, by a white Kenosha police officer. He could get life in prison. Rittenhouse, who was 17 at the time, went to Kenosha with an AR-style semi-automatic weapon and a small medic bag in what the former police youth cadet claimed was an effort to protect property after rioters had set fires and ransacked businesses on previous nights. North Carolina Republicans are well positioned to pick up at least 2 House seats in next year's election, but it's not because the state is getting redder. The state remains a perennial background, closely split between Democrats and Republicans in elections. In the last presidential race, Republican Donald Trump won by just over 1 percentage point, the narrowest margin since Barack Obama barely won the state in 2008. But last week, they redrew congressional district boundaries, dividing up Democratic voters in cities to dilute their votes. The new plan took the number of GOP-leaning districts from 8 to 10 in the state. Republicans even have a shot at winning an 11th. North Carolina's plan drew instant criticism for its aggressive approach, but it's hardly alone. Experts and lawmakers tracking the once-a-decade redistricting process see a cycle of supercharged gerrymandering. With fewer legal restraints and amped-up political stakes, both Democrats and Republicans are pushing the bounds of the tactic long used to draw districts for maximum partisan advantage, often at the expense of community unity or racial representation. Gerrymandering is a practice almost as old as the country, in which politicians draw district lines to crack opposing voters among several districts or pack them in a single one to limit competition elsewhere. At its extreme, gerrymandering can deprive communities of representatives reflecting their interests and lead to elections that reward candidates who appeal to the left or far right, making compromise difficult in Congress. Boeing agreed on Wednesday to acknowledge liability for compensatory damages in lawsuits filed by families of the 157 people killed in the 2019 Ethiopian Airlines 737 MAX crash, according to a filing in U.S. District Court in Chicago. As a result of the agreement between Boeing and the families, will not seek punitive damages, and Boeing will not challenge the lawsuits being filed in Illinois. Lawyers for the victims noted in a statement that Boeing admitted under the agreement that the 737 MAX was in an unsafe condition and that it will not attempt to blame anyone else for the crash. This is a significant milestone for the families in their pursuit of justice against Boeing, as it will ensure they are all treated equitably and eligible to recover full damages under Illinois law, while creating a pathway for them to proceed to a final resolution, whether through settlements or trial, the lawyer said. They added the compensation will serve to hold Boeing fully accountable for the deaths of the 157 people who perished. Boeing's best-selling plane was eventually grounded for 20 months after 346 people died in 2 737 MAX crashes, first in Indonesia in 2018 and then Ethiopia in 2019. The FAA was the last of the aviation administrations to ground the aircraft, after most other countries did so first. You can subscribe to 5 Minute News on YouTube with your preferred podcast app. Ask your smart speaker or enable 5 Minute News as your Amazon Alexa flash briefing skill. Subscribe, rate and review online at 5minute.news. 5 Minute News is an Evergreen podcast covering politics, inequality, health and climate, delivering independent, unbiased and essential world news daily.